Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and sorry I've been absent for a few days, guys, but I just wanted a little breather after my Star Wars video, and deciding what video I could come up with next. But I finally came up with another franchise ranking, and it's going to be for all four of the Predator movies. So, that being said, let's get started on it. And before I start, guys, I will also once again be ranking it from best to worst. And technically, it's good to go the chronological order they came out because it's technically how I would rank them. But, sorry. Anyways, I will get started on it. And of course, we'll start with what is, of course, my favorite film of the Predator series. Obviously, everyone's favorite. And that is for none other than the very first film, Predator. And what is this film about? Well, a soldier named Dutch and his team go to South America to rescue these hostages from these communist insurgents. Accompanying him in the mission is this friend of Dutch and Agent Dylan, Carl Weathers, and after completing the mission, they proceed to their stretch of point where, unfortunately, they get hunted down by this creature called the Predator. This alien warrior who has arrived on Earth to hunt humans for sport. And why do I love this film? Well, it's from director John McTiernan that established his Hollywood career as he would definitely go on to direct what is another one of my favorite action films, Die Hard, and The Hunt for October, and of course the second sequel, Die Hard with Vengeance, but I've already ranked the Die Hard franchise, so I'm not going to get into those films, but you can check out that ranking. It's a nice bait and switch. It starts out as your typical 80s action film before turning to the suspenseful horror film after the Predator comes shown and becomes visible. Some very memorable quotable dialogue from many actors, especially Schwarzenegger, or in his infamous line, "Get to the job," and those great creature effects from Stan Wilson, a nice soundtrack from Alan Silverstone, very nice performances. It would basically go, the Predator after this would go on to become the iconic film monster, along with this other monster that Fox invented, known as the Xenomorph from the Alien films, the excellent done action scenes, and very good cinematography. Now, what are the bad qualities? Well, there's too much digital noise and, well, only in the Hunter edition on Blu-rays, so that's kind of the only bad quality. But now, how would I especially rank this film? Well, I would rank it a flat out 10 out of 10. It's still a very fun sci-fi horror flick, and it's still one of my favorite Schwarzenegger roles, along with the Terminator, of course. But of course, it would go on to be such a huge hit that we would eventually get a sequel to it. Well, at the time it was the only sequel around the 1900s to get it, but that film was none other than Predator 2. Now, was it as good as the first one? Well, no, but I bet it was still a pretty good sequel, nonetheless. In fact, a lot of fans consider it very underrated. But anyway, this one is set 10 years after Predator 1 and is set in 1997 during a territorial gang war. Another Predator is sent to Earth, and this terrorizes the citizens of LA. And this time, the only man that can really stop this Predator is this officer lieutenant named Mike Hargan, who's played by Danny Glover in this film. And why is film... Now, I'll get on with the good qualities. Basically, Danny Glover's performance as Mike Hargan was really good, even though Mike Hargan isn't as good of a hero as Dutch, but I think he was still a pretty good character nonetheless, and Danny Glover thought he did really good for what he got, even though I like him more in the Lethal Weapon films, but he was still pretty good in this film too. Took the setting, this time it's not set in a jungle, and this time it's set in a city, and it's actually kind of a good interesting setup. Like the first film, good bait and switch, starts out as a 90s action film, but then becomes a suspenseful horror thriller once the Predator enters the picture. Still some great creature effects from Stan Wilson. It helped further expand on the Predator, even helps further expand on the mythologically the Predator, and started that comic series Alien vs. Predator, and got those really two pitiful Alien vs. Predator films. Ugh, I'm going to get to those in a different ranking, and that'll be for the Alien films when I do that one. But anyway, still a good soundtrack from Alan Silverstone. It's very great action scenes, especially during the opening final battle between Mike and the Predator. Fantastic cinematography, some great performances from the supporting cast like Bill Paxton and Gary Busey. Rest in peace, Bill Paxton. The Predator's new weaponry is very creative, and the scene where the Predator brutally kills people in the train is probably one of the most awesome and terrifying scenes in sci-fi history, in my opinion. Now, the bad qualities, yeah, the Xenomorph skull does set up the two 9 Predator films, but I've already talked about that. I feel like the film feels a little too mean and dark at times. Like this movie's a lot darker than the first one. It felt a little too violent. It's a little more violent than it needed to be, but I don't know. It's a sequel. Sequels are always going to be darker than the first one, more violent. It kind of falls in that territory. But how would I rank this film? Well, I would rank it an 8 out of 10. It's as good as the first one? No, but I think it's still a pretty good sequel nonetheless, and I think it's kind of underrated in a way. I'm glad it's getting some better appreciation now because I feel like it deserves it. But after this movie didn't do well at the box office, unfortunately, another Predator film would not be made where he was just solo, anyways. The Alien Predator films don't count. But then, 20 years after Predator 2, we finally did get a Predator movie, and that was for none other than Predators. Now, this one actually went back to the jungle. And of course, because basically after this film took you to the city, took you to this first Predator film took you to the jungle, Predator 2 took you to the city. This time it's back in the full-on jungle. Oh, and this time it's actually about this group of mercenaries, soldiers, criminals, and doctors who land in this jungle located on that planet that's inhabited by all the Predator creatures, and they become a prey of the Predators in this deadly hunting game, and they have to join forces and escape, destroy the creatures, and escape the planet. I consider it I consider it an okay movie, really, but not a lot of people talk about it. Not a lot of people seem to remember this one as much, but I still remember what it was. I only saw it once, but I think from what I saw, it's actually not a very bad sequel. I think it was kind of a good film. The good stuff was that it was very action-packed with so much scary sci-fi elements. The plot was very intricate and fast-paced. You barely see much fillers in the subplot. Just to the point and non-stop action. Parts where each of the group members try to survive and escape the Predator's grasp provides heart-pounding excitement. And the personal agenda, secret background of each character gives the film a very suspenseful prize. And Nimrod Tub did a good job directing it, and well, even though technically he doesn't really get much credit, most of the credit went to Robert Rodriguez, who produced the movie. And as now, for the casting, some people have problems with them, but I think they're kind of good. I mean, I thought Adrien Brody was pretty good. Was not bad as Royce, and even though I like him better, Adrien Brody better as his character in King Kong, but I thought he was still pretty good as the character Royce. And sure, I mean his over-exerting Batman voice and actual image was just but he at least made a good effort for what it was. His group wasn't as heroic or courageous as Dutch's group in the film, but I think the only other bad quality is that the movie feels a little anticlimactic and left most plot threads hanging at the end, and kind of sets up a sequel that we're not going to get at the very end. But and the other good quality is that even actually surprisingly, Topher Grace is in this film, and he actually did a way better job in this film than he did with this horrible portrayal of Venom in Spider-Man 3. This was a much better, improved role for him after that disastrous Venom portrayal. I feel like this basically redeemed his career. And even though he's also good in that 70s show, but all in all, bad quality aside, how would I rank this film? Well, I'd rank it a 7 out of 10. It's an okay movie, not as good as the first two, but it's still a pretty okay movie nonetheless. In fact, I really wish we got a sequel to Predators instead of the upcoming one I'm about to get to, and yeah, speaking of the next one I'm getting to, we now get on with the worst Predator movie, and that's The Predator from 2018. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Let's just get what the movie's about, and then we'll get on with the good qualities and the good stuff out of the way first. It's about this young boy who accidentally triggers a device that attracts the Daily Predator aliens, and then a ragtag group of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled scientist must now prevent the end of the human race. What are the good qualities? Well, the Predators are still look pretty amazing. The soundtrack's decently composed by Henry Jackman, even though it's literally a retreat and rehash of Alan Silverstein's score. The opening was still pretty good scene, and the main protagonist Quinn is actually the only likable character I found in the film, and only good character I found in the film, and well, yeah, and the bad qualities, the Predators. They're this race to suffocate aliens hunting for the sole purpose of finding honor and sport, which catch most worth of praise. This time they're generic alien invaders who collect DNA. That's not who they are. And how the heck would taking this autism from this young boy help them evolve their race? Like, really, like, Rory McKinnon. Now, the other good quality is that the young boy Rory McKinnon was also the only other likable character in the film. I actually still thought Tremblay still gave a pretty good performance for what he got. Well, and I actually still consider that. Even though I liked Tremblay better in Good Boys, Wonder, and Room, he was actually still one of the only good parts of this movie. And yeah, it can't even decide whatever wants to be a serious horror film or a comedic action film. In fact, it literally feels like a parody of the Alien franchise, and that's not what Alien is. Alien is not a comedic franchise. It never was. A lot of the characters, except for a lot of the other characters, are very unlikable, cartoonish, and over the top. In stark contrast, unlike the more realistic and believable characters from the first three films, the very poor special effects. They seemed like effects that belonged in a made-for-television film. Very lazy and weak action scenes. It even flat out ignored the events of the previous films. It basically just feels like a remake. The soundtrack was literally just a retreat of all the Alan Silverstone score from the first two. And William was such a lame and pathetic villain. Just some pale imitation of Peter from the second film. And even lacks seriousness to the point of he even just basically gets himself killed with the plasma canister he puts on. And a lot of cringeworthy jokes that felt way too immature. Most notably the mom's video game joke, aka the rated E for everyone joke. Even though it was funny, it's definitely a really unnecessary scene. The upgraded Predator, the Super Soldier Predator, looks way too ridiculous. It even replaces the regular Predator as the main threat halfway through the film. Too many countless plot holes. It even, all the time that gets spent in it even looks like it's just trying to set up a sequel that focuses on a story. And a very terrible ending, that sequel bait, which we're probably not going to get a sequel to this film. And of course, there was the whole sex offender incident that I'm not going to get into. Now, the other good qualities was the cast was pretty good. They actually seemed like they did enjoy being around each other, so I'll give it that. But all in all, I'd rank it a very, very bad 4 out of 10. It's very unwatchable. It's the worst Predator movie ever, and I really hope that, since Disney and Fox, I really hope they can fix the damage this film did, but that's just me, guys. So all in all, how would I rank all these movies? Well, here it goes. First place best, Predator. Second place, Predator 2. Third place, Predators. And bottom worst, The Predator. That is how I would rank all the Predator movies. So anyway, that'll be it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this one some more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.